Alright, here we are again, approaching John F. Kennedy Airport, and I've flown this approach a couple times now, trying to get the video just right, and it's hard to strike a balance between commenting on everything that I do and talking too much, and you know that I tend to talk too much, so I try to not comment on everything. I'm following the camera for arrival, and from about the cars intersection I will turn left. Give me some simulated radar vectors to approach for the Canarsie approach, the VR or GPS runway 13 left, 13 right approach. We'll be landing on runway 13 left in John F. Kennedy, and you can see the weather has gotten a little worse, some cloud cover below to make the approach a little more interesting. I get back into the cockpit, and if you look at the DME, we're 12 miles out of the Sea Isle VOR, already on the 049 course, and I'm going to switch to hitting select here to make it easier to pass overhead the station. Whenever you approach an airport, you need to do a structured planning to do so, especially high traffic, high density environments like John F. Kennedy. There's not much time to do briefings and stuff later on as you get into the thick of things, so you want to plan ahead, talk about the terrain situation, get the weather, get the type of approach to expect, do the briefing. During the briefing you would set the minimum, and you can see it's 800 feet, and talk about what kind of altitudes you want to be at what point in time, like 1500 over Canarsie VOR, where the missed approach point is, what the missed approach procedure is. You want to have that ready in your head in case you have to fly it. There's a little time to check the charts. You want to set up the radios appropriately. You can see my first officer has the map selected and at an 80-mile range, and soon VOR will come into view that you have tuned, and you can see the other VORs in the database here, and right there on the bottom is the Sea Isle VOR, the green one that we're just passing overhead. I have raw data selected on my mode here, the so-called expanded rows mode, and you can see that I have the radial displayed here. It's pegged to the side as I'm just passing overhead the station. You want to plan your descent. Good rule of thumb is take your flight level, 250, divide by 3 and take off another 10%, so that comes out at 75, and at 75 miles to go, 75 miles to fly. You want to start your descent if you go down on the normal speed, 270 knots to 10,000 and then 250. That usually works out. Factor in the tailwind, factor in different weights, different approach speeds, and also you never know exactly what path you will fly, what radar vectors you'll get. So you can see that planning a descent is more, well, there's some science, some art, and experience, and of course a lot of luck involved to get it just right. The idea is to chop thrust to idle in cruising altitude and then glide down onto your approach and just add thrust again for the last 1,000 feet. That's the ideal that we are striving for, and once in a while you get it right, and it's a very satisfying experience. You want to do the approach items, and usually the pilot flying tells the pilot monitoring what he would like to do, if he wants to do flaps 30, flaps 40 approach, and it's a good idea to get that done in time. So I get back to the approach page here, see flaps 30, the VREF is 130, and you want to set some of the plastic bugs for a flaps 30 approach. I like to use 2 bugs, flaps 40 I would use 2 and actually 3, 1 set to VREF, 1 set to VREF plus 15, and as I said, for the flaps 40 I would put 2 bugs here just as a visual reminder during approach that I don't accidentally land with just flaps 30. Here we go, the first officer does the same thing, 130, 145, and he's got the 800 feet set there for his altitude reminder. Don't use the decision height, radar altitude decision height, unless you do a category 2 or category 3 approach. Category 1 and worse, like non-precision circling or so, you would always use this one because it references to barometric altitude. Okay, 10 miles to go to the descent, and also told my co-pilot that I'd like to use auto brake setting 2. Try to pan not too frantic while I shoot this video. It does not come out very well after it's rendered, but of course in the real cockpit you would pan around a lot and set this thing and that, and of course that's more natural when you move your head or if you use the track IR. You want to set the TCAS display to below. That's a bias towards below. That gives you better view of the targets. It's not decided yet how we can tie in the display of TCAS target with X-plane. We have to see, and of course now I'm on 128.12 on VHF1. That's the New York approach, and they give us the new squawk just to kick through 2300. And I have set my audio selector panels up. I'm transmitting on VHF1. You can see you can put PA or flight interphone, and of course I have all these channels selected for listening, and that gives me some awareness of what's going on in the airplane. You can hear the cabin attendants talk amongst each other if you have the service interphone selected, and this is for communication with your co-pilot. Of course this is for PA announcements. Sometimes you get a little advance warning if there's something going on in the captain. If they call for a doctor, for example, you know immediately, okay, something is going on. Okay, 74 miles to go, actually a little past my calculated descent point, so let's start going down, and ATC clears us to 10,000 feet for now. So I'll go 10,000, hit level change, you know that drill. Plane starts going downhill. Another thing you don't want to forget when you approach or when you do any approach is to turn on the fasten belt signs in time. The cabin attendants need some time to clear away stuff. So let's do that now. I like to do it about 15 minutes prior to landing, a little earlier if you expect some rough weather during the approach, and that gives them ample time to stop the service, clear away all the stuff, and get the cabin ready for the approach and landing. Okay, and after you've done the briefing, the approach items, it's time to do the actual approach checklist. And oh, what is this? Okay, this is a little surprise I had up for you. Master caution, call out, and there it is on the FO's side. You can see master caution, air condition. Okay, here we are, off schedule descent light. I'll come back to that in a second. Whenever you have some sort of warning light, some sort of normal, you would cancel that to get the system ready for another warning. Of course it would pop up, but you wouldn't get the master caution light again, so I'd like to cancel that. We won't forget it, but the first thing, always fly your airplane. We're descending to 10,000, that is feet, not an altitude, very important. Don't forget to set your altimeter setting, and we checked with John F. Kennedy and they have 30.00, so you want to turn that back. And of course the first officer does the same thing, so we don't have a discrepancy here. Okay, 30.00, that's taken care of, so now the plane will level off at 10,000 feet and not at flight level 100. Could create a dangerous situation. Okay, let's take a look at what we have here. I'm moving in a little bit so we can see the panel really well. Off-schedule descent light. I will get lots of bug reports about that, I know that. I won't be able to reach everyone, but if you watch this video, you won't give me a hard time with that. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Boeing made the pressure controller aware of the flight altitude, and whenever you don't reach it, remember we cruised at level 250, not at 270, then the plane thinks, oh, he's going back to the departure airport. He must have some sort of emergency, engine failure, smoke, or someone sick or something. I'm going to help the poor pilot, and I will drive the cabin altitude back to the altitude of the departure airport. It's there's not a big discrepancy between Wilmington and John F. Kennedy, but if you take off in a mountainous area and you're planning to fly to almost a sea level airport, there's a big difference. And in this case you wouldn't have to do anything, just let the cabin do its thing. It's driving back down to, let's say, 2,000 or 3,000 feet, wherever your departure airport was, and that's fine. But in 99% of the cases you just forgot to climb to the altitude, or it never happened for traffic reasons. And the way to cure this is to just dial down the flight altitude to the actual altitude. And if you glance down real quick, we're at 17,500 descending. So I'm just going to grab this, dial it down until the light goes out. Here we go. Just leave it whenever. Now the plane knows, okay, you are in the descent towards the intended landing altitude, 11 feet, John F. Kennedy, and everything is fine. So if you don't want to run into that situation, maybe just put in like 3,000 or so, and then you can fly around all you want. Even if you climb above your flight altitude, the pressure controller will make sure that you don't exceed pressure limits, so you don't really have to worry about it. If you want to play it right, you put in the flight altitude that you are actually going to cruise at, and then if you forget and get the off-schedule descent, you know what to do. Dial it down and it's taken care of. Okay, passing the 59 DME, I'm actually past the cars intersection, and the ATC is calling me turn left heading 010. Plane starts the bank, and I look over at the FO side again, and you can see here there's John F. Kennedy, 40 miles to go, and there's the Canarsie. Canarsie is still blue because I haven't tuned it yet. I will do so now, then it will turn green. And this is a great map view for situational awareness, much better than just having the expanded mode here, but I'll use that because it shows me exactly where the radial is, and I will need that precision for flying the approach. Okay, the inbound course will be, of course, 043. And with a slight heading change over the VOR, and the frequency for Canarsie is 112.3, so let's set that as well. There we go. And we don't receive it yet. That's a low power VOR. It should come in any second though. And then just in case I want to see where I am, I glance over, and there you can see Canarsie, JFK. I'm on a good track. Distance to go, 40 miles, just over 12,000 feet. That sounds good. And if you fly an approach that is challenging, like the Canarsie approach, most non-precision approaches, you want to take it slow. You don't want to come in high and fast. So I ask ATC for further descent, and they say, okay, go down to 3,000 feet. Put in 3,000. And as I come up on 10,000 feet, of course I want to slow down to 250. That's the standard speed below 10,000 feet. And if you're in certain airspace, you can fly faster if you're late. If you need the higher speed to lose altitude, you can ask ATC if that's okay. And but there's some risks involved. Mostly bird strikes. The lower you get, the more likely they are. I also turn on the inboard landing lights for increased visibility. And I'm approaching the area of the clouds here, so I want to turn on the engine anti-ice. If I look down at the temperature, anything between -40 and +10 is icing territory, so we're at -9 right now for the total air temperature. So let's turn on the engine anti-ice. And you can see as I turn on the switches, it takes a second for the valves to drive, and as soon as they are in agreement with the switch position, that gets dim, and now the engine inlets are getting heated by hot air, and no ice can accumulate there. Okay, we're coming up on 40 minutes here. This is a good point in the approach, passing 10,000 feet to cut off right here and continue with the actual final approach and landing next week. Hope you enjoyed this video, and see you next weekend.